Kenny Winslow, Executive Director for the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police.
So, can you tell me what inspired you to take the journey into law enforcement?
I wasn't like a lot of people that I know, having been involved in recruitment of officers for several years now. There are a lot of times there's those officers who just know from day one that they want to be a police officer. That's what they want to do. And I was not one of those people. To be honest with you, I was dating a girl in high school. Her dad was a warden of a juvenile prison. He's like, "What are you going to do with your life?" We dated for about 2 years, and it was looking kind of serious. And he was giving me the once over about what my plans were after high school. And so I'm just going to school, kind of taking some courses. And then he brings up, "Well, have you ever thought about law enforcement?" And I'm like, "No, not really." And so, uh, took an elective course and kind of got my appetite wet. And then I had a cousin who was an officer and reached out to him, did a ride along with him, uh, hooked myself up with another guy who worked at St. Louis City at the time, did a ride along with him, and then kind of got my appetite from there. My dad was also kind of a driving force behind it. I always tell people he was a scanner head when he was young. He always wanted to be a police officer and never really pursued it. Worked in manufacturing. And he didn't have the education either. He dropped out of school at 8th grade to go to work because his father died. He was one of 13 children, and so they had to go to work to support the family. And he was the baby of the family, so 8th grade he started working full time after he dropped out. And then started working in the factory and just stayed there. So, but he was a big driving force behind it, saying, "Hey, I think you'd be really good at this." And again, I think it goes back to his time as it's something he always wanted to do. And like I said, we called him a scanner head. That's what he was referred to, because he always had the police scanner on about what was going on, what was happening in St. Louis, what was happening in the surrounding jurisdictions. And that was his entertainment. And again, it's just one of the things that after doing some ride-alongs, after talking to some people in the field, it was something that whet my appetite, and I decided to pursue it, and I was off.
And as police chief in Springfield, how was it to be the leader of a larger city?
It was challenging, but very rewarding. We obviously had our fair share of issues, just like any other department does. Overall, I got to work with a great group of men and women who truly care about their community. But in the chief job in an agency this size, and then being in the capital city, you're kind of in the middle of all of it, from the political aspects of it, all the way down to just the crime and the socioeconomics that our community faces. We kind of have it all, and we're one of those communities that's not precluded from major issues, such as gun violence, and some of the more serious crimes that we see out there in the world. And but overall, very rewarding career. It wasn't like I started one day and thought, heck, I want to be chief someday. It never really crossed my mind. To be honest with you, my goal would have been probably, and I didn't think about it, when you get hired, you're just thinking you're happy to be a cop, and then you want to be a detective, and then you want to move up to the next thing, then you want to move up to the next thing. And that was kind of just that thing. As you achieved a different goal, then you start to think about maybe the one above you after a couple of years, I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. To be honest, I never thought I would be the chief. Typically those people that are chief are people who have some connections to the community from here, maybe some political connection. I didn't have none of that. I was really a true outsider, but from the inside of the department.
So can you tell me a little bit about the Illinois Chiefs of Police Association?
Yeah, we're a collection of 1,400 plus members of chiefs and senior command staff of departments throughout the state. We do legislative advocacy. We do professional development and growth. We look at professionalizing the association, I should back up. One of our major goals is to professionalize the career and professionalize the law enforcement. And we do that through, maintaining high standards. We do that through our accreditation program that we offer for departments around the state to ensure they're practicing and embracing best practices, making sure their standards are where they need to be. We also do that through our police officer certification, our police chief certification testing. So we're always striving for that continuous improvement. We know that in law enforcement, we have to continue to evolve as a profession. If we don't, we'll get left behind. And I always tell people a lot of times, it's like, look at the private sector. If you don't evolve, you're out of business. So
Yeah.
we have to evolve, and we have to make sure that we represent society and that we are doing our best. When you boil it all down, it's really about problem solving and maintaining peace. And that's why we're called peace officers in all the laws. We're not referred to as police officers, we're referred to as peace officers. And so we got to keep that inside as we're moving forward. The association represents departments from 1 to 13,000. So
Yeah.
we have a wide mix of agencies that are involved in the association. And again, there's also the networking aspect of it, and the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the profession. It's a place where that you want to get an outside opinion. You may be working on a problem or an issue in your department, and you're surrounded by your senior staff, and sometimes we get into that group think, and we want to get an outside opinion. And so, but having multiple chiefs at the tip of your fingers and just make a phone call and get different opinions about what you got, what you have, and get their ideas about how to handle it, and if they've ever dealt with something like that is invaluable. So those are some of the major things that we try to do. Again, the legislative advocacy, the professional development, the accreditation programs, the networking, and then the training. We do welfare trainings throughout the state. We put on 2 conferences a year. We put on our annual conference, then we put on our Midwest Expo, which is the largest trade expo in the country besides the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And then we also put on different special subject topic trainings, whether that be on body cameras or whether that'll be on the Safety Act and things that go through. So just to make sure that our men and women and our members are updated on the latest and what they need to do as we move forward.
So with Illinois, you have large cities like Chicago and the suburbs. And then if you go south or even west, you have very small cities, rural cities. With all the different sheriffs, how is it for everyone to learn from each other?
Well, it's very important, and you're exactly right. You take the city of Chicago out, and then you do have some larger organizations. There's some organizations out there like CLIC, which is Chiefs of Large Illinois Cities, which is basically your larger cities. That's your Springfields, your Peorias, your Decatur, your Champagnes, your Bloomington Normal, your Elgins, your Waukegans, your Auroras, et cetera, Joliet's. It's your bigger cities outside there, and those chiefs have an informal mentoring group where they share ideas and share ideas and strategies and bounce ideas off of each other. And then what you see is that those departments are oftentimes looked at as the leaders in those geographical areas where they're from, And so smaller departments around that area, whether they're, the suburbs of Peoria, or the Metro East down around Belleville,
Yeah.
they start talking to each other in their local chiefs associations about, hey, this is what we're doing to address this. This is what we're doing to address this. And then people start seeing, hey, what works for you may work for them. And how can I tailor it to a smaller department? We're seeing that right now, to be honest with you, with the Safety Act and the training mandates, as well as the body camera mandates. Some of your larger organizations have had body cameras for quite some time now, and others don't. And so willing to share your knowledge and your knowledge about the product, how it works, and how it can be adapted to a smaller department, it's a good thing, and giving them some advice on how to, look at policy development, look at, operationally what you're going to need, et cetera. And, every department has their own unique challenges. Money's a challenge. You wouldn't think so today, but, broadband technology is a challenge. If you're going to have body cameras out in the rural areas, do you have connectivity, that you can upload? Can you get a cradle, or are you going to have to store local? So there's a lot of things in there, and a lot of departments have done it different ways. So sharing that knowledge and being that sounding board and having that forum to bounce ideas off of is huge. And so, the other thing we do with the association is, some of our members help train other members, especially in the rural areas. Sometimes the sheriff's departments provide that training as well, and kind of that infrastructure. And they're kind of seen as some of those in those smaller communities, those smaller rural areas. They're kind of the big dog in the county, and
Yeah.
they can help, bridge some of those gaps. But then again, you have some sheriff's departments that only have 12, 13 deputies, so they're not real big either. So how do we work through that? And it's about sharing information. It's about helping somebody along. as I always tell people, we succeed as a team. One thing we really enjoy here at the Chiefs, one thing we pride ourselves on, is that when somebody becomes a member, we're invested in your success. You know, we want to help you succeed. We want to help you, uh, uh, build your department to something better than what it is when you came in. And ultimately, I think everybody kind of adopts that philosophy, and we just move forward that way.
So in 2021, you were recognized as Illinois Police Chief of the Year. Uh, how how did it feel to be honored by your peers?
It was a great honor. It was one of those things that I was surprised when it happened. I've been involved in the association, since 2014. A lot of members been involved a lot longer than me. But being an active member, being involved in different aspects of whether it's the legislative committee, et cetera, doing presentations, sharing that knowledge, and being recognized for some things you're doing in your own community. Trying to be innovative, trying to be progressive, but open to change and being adaptable. One thing that we did at the Springfield Police Department when I was there is that we were really tasked with building community relations. And we see that being more and more important now than it ever has, and embracing community policing. And we always had a good community policing program, but expanding that program out and philosophy out department wide, there was always some pushback on it. And, overcoming some of those obstacles, which wasn't always easy, some of those barriers, we saw the results and we reaped the results. And, the organization is still moving forward under Chief Scarlett. And hopefully he takes it above and beyond where I left it. And I know he will. I have complete confidence in him. But we broke down a lot of those barriers in the community. We built those relationships, and we saw him pay dividends about what happened earlier this year with one of his officers. So that's the key. When you build that trust in your community, and your community says, "Hold up, we're not going to overreact to this." Let's talk to the chief. Let's talk to the police department, figure out what happened, get their insight on it. I know that if their guys did something wrong, they're going to hold them accountable. They're going to investigate it thoroughly. And that's the kind of relationship we built. We took what was once probably, I don't want to say adversarial, but one that definitely there wasn't much of a relationship there with a lot of our minority communities, and built that into something very strong, into basically one of the best community relations in the state. I mean, I have chiefs all the time call me, "Hey, how can I build better relationships? How can I build better relationships?" I was just on a call this morning with a member of the NAACP state board about an issue they're having over in East Central Illinois with the department. And he asked if I would mind making a call to the chief over there and having a conversation, because they thought there was some misconception over there. And yeah, I'll be more than happy to do that. That's what a partnership's about.
Yeah.
We have to work together to improve our communities. And chiefs need to remember, we can't effectively reduce crime and solve community problems without the support of the community. And so you have to have that trust factor. And there's always going to be an element that doesn't like the police. There's always going to be an element that doesn't trust the police. But you know what? If you go out there and you do the right thing day in, day out, you provide a quality service. You hold your people accountable when they mess up. When we mess up, we fess up, we take corrective action, we move on. If discipline's appropriate, then you discipline and you move on. And you can't be afraid to do that. And sometimes chiefs are a little timid about that. Sometimes they feel their hands are tied by various CBA agreements, or they're afraid of arbitration process. It is what it is, and I always tell people, do the right thing, and however it plays out, but you did the right thing, and just move on. You can't stop and look back. I know there was officers that I let go that were brought back by an arbitrator. I didn't agree with the decision. The city may not have agreed with the decision, but at the end, I know I did the right thing. That officer's back. Bygones are bygones. Start new and let's move forward. Let's not let it happen again, and life goes on. And that's what you got to do. You got to just be careful out there. Nobody wants a bad officer. Nobody hates a bad officer more than a good officer. So, again, one person makes the whole career look crappy. And with that said, we just got to be able to, stand in front of the community and say what happened, be blunt about it, be transparent about it, and just move forward.